Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 11, season 4 of The Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. Evening, Richie. Another decent round of NRL finished off with a heartbreaking Warriors defeat last night. How was your week, and what did you think of the round?
Hey, evening, Brad. The week's been good. The round of footy's been really good as well. Some more very close, exciting finishes. Yeah, last night just put a bit of a damper on it. It's still processing it a bit, but yeah, we'll get one day.
One day. And while we're here live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m, we'll also catch our show via the podcast on iHeartRadio and Spotify and all those places at your convenience. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know of the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of round 8, and an update on our tips. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys as well as some questions we've got for each other before previewing round 9 and making our picks and ending the night with some Super League. So remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we'll do our best to answer them. But we may as well just jump straight in, Richie, go into the top stories of the week. Yep. Not really that many this week, surprisingly. Trying to find a lot, but I suppose the big one from the end of last week, as always happens after our show, they drop some big news on us. But Roger Tuivasa-Sheck signed a 3-year deal to return to the Warriors in 2024. I don't know if Paul wants to jump in on this as the rugby man, but what's your take on that news?
Me or Paul? Go, Paul.
Whichever one wants to go first.
I mean, look, he's become an All Black, so you can't say it's been a failure but he hasn't perhaps reached the heights he was hoping for. And he probably needs to give himself more time if he was to try and make it as a top flight as first choice 12 for the Rugby World Cup. But look, I think he's still in with a good shout of going to the Rugby World Cup like he wanted to. But I don't think he'll be going as first choice.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Paul. As a Warriors fan, I'm happy though, because I believe he's better suited. I know he came from Union as a schoolboy, but I believe over the past decade or so, he really became adapted to rugby league and really suits his style. The extra space, the not the flat rushing defense lines of Union. Having a 10-meter space in between really suits him, and I'm excited. I think he'll add to what's already looking like a Warriors team that's progressing nicely.
Yeah, I think when it was announced that he was getting released early, we talked on the show and said, I think we all said that after his contract's up and like at the end of the World Cup, he'd be back with the Warriors. It looked a bit dicey there. I think we talked a few weeks ago. It was talking about Japanese rugby and things like that, but it's good to see him back. And I know there's a lot of questions about where he's going to play, what's going to happen, who's going to come and go. We'll probably talk about it more as the year progresses, but we've still got a whole season of footy to talk about for the Warriors this year, so don't want to, get too far ahead of ourselves. But I saw Paul was quizzical, so I think there's a question coming.
Yeah. No, I put this to you in our kind of live chat, so I thought I'd put it out live and sort of talk about it as well. He could have gone to Japan for $1 million. Let's be honest, he's not coming back to the Warriors on peanuts. He's going to come back on some decent money. Now, with the salary cap and with how the team's going this year, is he worth the money though to come back, or is he actually kind of an expense you don't, or a luxury you don't necessarily need?
He's not going to be on $1 million.
But he's not going to be on peanuts either, is what I'm trying to say.
No, but I feel like the majority, probably not all, but the majority of his salary is going to be covered by what they're paying Matt Lodge right now to play for the Roosters. So in terms of the cap, I think it's still going to be okay because it's kind of money that is not being used for any player right now anyway. Will it work? We won't know till next year, Paul. I'm fairly confident. And yeah, I think Jacko said RTS should be on around 700K. I think I'm hoping that is because I think that's what they're paying Lodge right now. But I think probably 8, maybe. It's all speculation. There's been no talks on it, but I'm seeing probably $800K to get him back at the club when he could be getting $1 million in Japan. So, yeah, but we don't know. We probably won't know until next year on how much he's actually getting.
Okay, but you think it'll be about what they're spending on someone who isn't playing anyway?
Yeah,
good,
yeah, I think
good cap management.
If not all, the majority of it will be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, who knows? But you got any takes on that before we move on, Richie?
No, I don't. Yeah, it's hard to say without speculating. I haven't heard anything on what he's going to be pulling in money wise. So yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we're going to get more as the year goes in terms of potentially players leaving the club, because there's a few off contract, which we talked about last week, Richie, to make room, or if there's anyone else they try to bring in. So we'll talk about it when it actually happens. So we'll move on to the next bit. The NRL are rumored to be planning to launch the 2024 season with a game in Las Vegas. There's technically not really any word on which teams will be included, but Rabbitohs are being thrown around at the moment due to Russell Crowe being their owner. And there were some talks about there being 2 games there with 4 Sydney teams, because that's what everyone wants, is to watch 4 Sydney teams play in America. Not a lot has been out and about it. They kind of floated this idea before, but what's your take on them taking the games to the NRL? I know we spoke a bit last night on a live stream with Ruin Hammer about internationals are probably the better way into the American market than the NRL itself.
Yeah, I think it's it's an idea. It just depends how well they promote it and what kind of crowd they pull. I mean, rugby league's still very much rugby union's even still relatively unknown over there. They've got their big 3 or big 4 sports that they tend to watch almost exclusively. So I mean, it's obviously an attempt to grow the game as long as they promote it well and able to pull some kind of crowd would be kind of cool.
Yeah, this might be a pull in moment again, but how big was the crowd last time the All Blacks took a game to America?
They've definitely had sellouts in Chicago, so you're kind of 60, 80,000. But the All Blacks brand is very different to the NRL brand, and also to the Wallabies brand, for example. So the Wallabies, when they go over, will get like 20K, kind of 20, 30K. They won't sell out. So the All Blacks brand is bigger than rugby. So I don't think it's a good comparison to be making as to what you can expect to get.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think the NRL need to forget taking like the Rabbitohs versus the Roosters, which is a game everyone wants to watch here. That's a great game, but they don't know that over there. That's why I think if you took the Kangaroos and the Kiwis, it's a little bit easier for an American to understand. It's New Zealand versus Australia. But yeah,
I still get an underlying feeling you'd be playing in front of a quarter-filled stadium.
Yeah, I think the only way you could really get away with it is if you took Canberra, because it's the Las Vegas Raiders and you got the Canberra Raiders. And they'll just see Raiders and go, let's go. Do like the Raiders versus the Broncos. So then they think it's a preseason game for the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos.
You're right. Take over the international games, but also you've got a Tongan population over there, a Pacific Island population. So you could take Pacific Island teams as well, and they would turn out for those games. So I think that you'd be better off doing it, as you say, international games, which needs growth anyway. And you could. I don't know if the USA has got what kind of international league side they've got, whether they could play a kind of emerging team or something along those sort of lines.
Well, they played in the World Cup. Not very well, but they were there. But yeah, it's. I understand the desire to grow the game, but the fact that we still can't get annual tests between the top tier nations, and you're trying to talk about growing the NRL, it all flows down. I know internationals aren't as important in their eyes, but I think nationalities is the way you're going to grow the game. So they need to focus on that.
Like Jacko's comment, when the Kiwis played England at Mile High Stadium, most Americans thought it was the All Blacks playing, not rugby league. So you're right going to get that.
That's the way the NRL have got to use it. Use the Kiwis, and then everyone thinks it's the All Blacks, and we'll actually go.
Yeah, Simon's right. So Utah would get a good Pacific population for a Pacific Island team. Would be a good place there. So so I would have. You're right. But again, I mean, is league going the same way as say like American football, where you just have a league, you don't have internationals? I mean, American football's only really played by NFL. No one else. Yeah. I mean, there are other leagues, but perhaps that's the way that league is going. Rather than, and that's not. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that might be the direction it goes in.
But that's the way the NRL wants it to be. They want to be thing, which they're a business. That's their bread and butter. They don't really care about the internationals because it doesn't help them in the long term. But yeah, we'll see what happens as it develops. It's all meant to be very hush-hush right now, but as is everything in the NRL, when it's hush-hush, everyone knows about it.
Hey, we're insiders. We know all the hush-hush things, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Next bit, which Simon might be interested in, it's a bit later in the signing news, but Jack Whiten signed with the Rabbitohs. The Raiders have reportedly lodged a formal complaint with the NRL regarding the Rabbitohs' contract for Jack Whiten, saying that they believe he's getting paid too little for his market value and that it's kind of a way to cheat the cap. The NRL CEO, Andrew Abdo, has actually come out and said he's confirmed that a salary cap auditor is going to review the contract and test the market value to see if the Rabbitohs need to pay more. What's your take on that, Richie? Is it a bit of a, I don't know, a polite way of saying it about the Raiders? Is it a bit of...
sour grapes?
Sour grapes, yeah, is probably the best way to say it. They're disappointed, but complaining about him going elsewhere for less money.
Maybe. I'm not an expert, and I won't pretend to be an expert when it comes to the ins and outs of contracts and what people should be paying. Like, is there like a minimum? Do you have to sign around a market value? Do you? That's one thing I didn't understand.
That's what happened with Matt Lodge when he went to the Roosters. The Roosters got told how much was the minimum they could pay him due to his market value. Sure. So there is meant to be a thing there, but and like Simon said, auditors should really check out the Roosters because so they always talk about how they're staying for less money. So if they are testing the market value, if everyone's willing to pay $1 million for Joseph Manu and they pay him 700, is that below his market value? I don't know how they work it, but I'm not good with the old numbers. So,
but I mean, again, does a player have to be paid his market value? Can he choose to take less so that he is in a squad where he doesn't have to play every weekend? He can get rest, so his body lasts longer, and he's more likely to win trophies.
That's what I was wondering.
The American football, I've gone blank. The greatest quarterback of all time,
Brady,
for years got paid less than he could have got paid elsewhere deliberately, so the squad could afford within the market cap an offensive line to look after him and receivers he could throw to. I mean, he deliberately took less money so that they could afford that. So, if a player wants to get paid less so they get more trophies, what's wrong with that?
I'm going to forget that you called Tom Brady the greatest of all time, and we can move on. He lost to Eli Manning in 2 Super Bowls. Thank you very much.
Come on, Brad. Come on, Brad.
New York Giants had the Patriots number, I'm telling you. But, and Jacko said, Gould recently said the Roosters have a $14 million roster. It's probably not far. It's, I don't know. And it's very cloak and daggers when it comes to the salary cap anyway. So you just don't know. But I'm sure we'll get some more news, hopefully by next week, about it. I don't know how long it takes a salary cap audit to look into it, but we'll keep our ears to the ground on it. Next bit of news, the Women's State of Origin will be played in both New South Wales and Queensland for the first time. They're still only playing 2 games, but the first game is on the 1st of June at Parramatta Stadium and the second one on the 22nd of June at North Queensland Stadium. What's your thoughts on that, with them actually deciding to play a game in both states? Kind of seems like the logical thing to do. But
It does, doesn't it? Kind of like the argument I put forward for the ANZAC game coming here once in a while, but when you watch last night, you can kind of understand why. But yeah, it's cool, mate. It's cool. Like you say, it's logical. They get one home ground advantage each, and the women's game's just picking up so much steam. You know, I really enjoyed watching the Women's State of Origin last year. I think it's, just like the men's, it's fiercely contested, and something to look forward to.
yeah, I still think they need to go up to 3 games.
100%. Make
just
a series
do
out
it.
of it.
Curtain raiser for every State of Origin game. It makes sense to me. And you're always guaranteed to get a great match out of them as well. So hopefully we see that maybe even as early as next year, that they take it up to 3 games. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Women's League. I think like Jacko's just said, it's the fastest growth area in league. And that's 100%. And especially you look last year, there was some shocking games in first grade for the men where it was one-sided, and that where the women's game, for the most part, they were all very competitive. So we'll see what happens now that there's a few more teams in there, if it's going to be a bit different, and if there's going to be some really, dominant sides and some not so much. Time will tell. But yeah, I love seeing it grow. So anything else you want to add?
I was going to talk about on the women's games. We were talking about it. Sonny Bill Williams' sister has moved over from Union to League, and her passing shot to New Zealand Rugby was give us multi-year contracts. So, and I've heard other. Wayne Smith was talking about the threat of both the women's AFL and women's rugby league to rugby union over here. So look, it does seem to be growing and growing better, and doing a better job of growing the professional game than union is on the women's side of things. So yeah, have tip to them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that adding multi-year contracts this year has really strengthened it, in my opinion. And I saw there was a question that you've started, but I'm actually heading into it now, Paul. So there's no, not that one. The one about the allowance. Yeah. So there's rumours that Peter V'landys is looking at introducing salary cap exemptions for rugby union stars to join the NRL. I've grabbed his little quote here, Richie, before I jump onto you for an opinion. But he said, "We've been looking at bringing in salary cap exemptions for players from other countries for some time. It was about bringing in players from America and other nations, but it would also apply to players from other sports. And yes, other sports include rugby. If a Wallaby or an All Black wanted to come over, we'd look at cap exceptions for sure. We've been looking at this for quite a while, and it's a good time to revisit it. It's something I'd like to come in now." So that might answer your question, Paul. That's why we've got Roger. We've got an exemption for him. He's getting paid next to nothing to come to the Warriors. But what's your take on it? I think it's a bit different, I guess, for us compared to anyone from Australia listening to us, because the divide and the hatred between league and union over there seems to be a bit more in the management side than it is over here. Like we've seen in the past, the Warriors and the Blues work together and do stuff, and we've got players interchanging all the time. But it's an interesting concept, but I think it's just another way. Another way to kind of cheat the cap if you just start luring in all the rugby union guys, and you're not really developing your own talent. If you're just it's perfect for the Roosters. They don't like developing talent, so the Roosters will just go and try to grab every rugby union player they can. But it's an interesting idea, but it feels like you're weakening your own game. It's just a pissing contest for V'landys again with rugby union. Every time there's something he sticks a bar about, like he did it with Rogers' announcement. saying like, oh, they should call rugby union rugby boomerang or some rubbish. And he's really into this, where I feel like everyone else doesn't care. It's like, you want good players in. If they want to come, take it, but not at the detriment of your own young guys. Because if you start stealing these big guys, all your young guys that are playing league will just go to union and fill their spots. And you're just doing
this was kind of like, oh, look, they can't. I'm discussing them stealing our players, and then next time, oh, yeah, it's a boomerang. V'landys needs to get the chip off his shoulder, I think. I don't get this, really. I think they'd be much better off saying you can have a salary cap exception for keeping your marquee players, because that keeps the fan base, and that players who have been there for 3 years already or something, you can give them X 100 or 200,000 extra to stay, that on top of your normal salary cap or something like that. To me, I think we're a better way of using this money than going and trying buying players who've got no rugby league experience, or very little. Who are, will they or won't they actually be any good at rugby league? I don't see what players and who he's trying to attract. Is he trying to attract an NFL player? That just seems nuts.
From what I can see, he just wants the marquee players from rugby union and other sports to say, look, we've taken your best guys. That's all it is. Like Christopher said, though, it would work if you want to get a young guy, like the NRL already did. They took Joseph Suwali from rugby union when he was younger, and now he's gone back. But that's what they did. They were able to throw him money that rugby union weren't willing to give him to steal him. But like Simon said, Peter needs to stop talking about other sports. Focus on the NRL. That's your job.
I don't understand which players he's trying to get and what TV market he's trying to attract by getting those players. Because if you're not going to bring in a TV market,
to be honest, I'm being biased, but it would only work if you're targeting All Blacks in terms of union. Like, no one cares about the Wallabies. Even Australia don't. So you're getting, for the All Blacks, if you were able to get like one of the Barrett brothers or something like that, someone with name recognition into the NRL, it's a needle mover. But it's not going to happen.
But outside rugby union, again, you're trying to enter the Japanese market. You're trying to find a Japanese player you want to bring in. Are you trying to find is it really, how many extra eyeballs are you going to get if Barrett comes across? You're going to get a few column inches initially, but I don't see, if he's trying all these people from, I don't see where he's looking overseas to get these players from. To my mind, I just don't see who he's going to be trying. You can't steal football players from the UK or NFL players from America. It's not going to work. So, yeah, I'm confused.
An NFL player would be amazing. NFL players don't know. NFL would be amazing, except they don't know how to tackle. So,
and I don't think that if they're aerobic capacity,
they don't know how to do both. They don't do both attack and defense.
Yeah,
no. But yeah, and as Jacko said, as a youngster, Nelson Asafa-Solomona was targeted for the Hurricanes, but the Storm got him first. Yeah, NRL is already really well known for grabbing youngsters that are playing union. So yeah, it's just a pissing contest, and V'landys likes the sound of his own voice, a bit like myself. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think like Paul said, I think going the other way where you get an exemption for long-serving players that are showing loyalty to the club, I think is a better way to go, because that would also get some of these stars to stay at one club because they know that they're going to be looked after, as opposed to jumping ship because they can get more money elsewhere. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm sure V'landys will give us another 3 or 4 headlines to talk about next week. So we'll move on to signings. Not too many, but we mentioned it during the show last week with breaking news that the Hammer has signed an extension with the Dolphins till the end of 2027. I think that's great for him and for them. What's your take on that?
Yeah, fantastic. I at the start of the season, I had my doubts on him as a fullback. Completely erased now. Completely erased. I think he just obviously needed time in the position and a coach who had the belief and trust in him to select him there and for him to show what he can do. And he's been fantastic this year. So, Yeah, I think there would have been an easy decision on both parties to get that deal done.
Yeah. And the Bulldogs have extended Jacob Preston until the end of 2027 as well, which I think is great. I think he's been doing really well.
Really good.
In his chances with the Bulldogs. Probably wouldn't have had the opportunities if they didn't have so many injuries. And do you want to start that comment, Simon? Paul, we'll talk about that in the question. I've got a good thing about that. So anyone who's listening and not watching, Simon just made a good point about the exemption for players. So we'll touch that in the questions because I've got a good point to that. Next bit, Jack Whiten signed a 4-year deal to join the Rabbitohs. Worst kept secret. It was confirmed today, but it was basically not long after our show last week. It was basically said it was a done deal. What's your take on Whiten to the Rabbitohs? Makes their team a bit more dangerous.
It does. And we were kind of messaging when this news came out, might be the end of Isaiah Tass in the centres for the Rabbitohs. He's the one I can see falling out if you're looking at their back line. So it's a bummer for him because he's come on pretty well the past couple of years. But Jack Whiten, I think, in that club with a couple of his good mates, Latrell, I know he gets along really well with those boys. So, it makes him a pretty scary proposition.
Yeah. Do you think he's been signed as an attempt looking down the line to replace Cody Walker in the halves when Cody Walker's done? Because they'll have him in centres now and move into 6 later?
Yeah, possibly. What's the age difference between the two? I know Cody Walker debuted really late, didn't he? Didn't he debut nearly 30 years old?
Cody's in his 50s now, mate. He's old. He
still goes well.
Yeah. Cody Walker is 33.
What's Jack? Jack can't be too much younger than that. What's he, 30?
Jack Whiten is 30.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's 3 years younger.
Maybe. It's not a bad shout.
It's just me, being the front rower talking about halves again. But it seems like a logical transition later, unless they want to bring up some young talent. But be interesting to see what they do. I think he'll be in the centres, as you said, though, from next year. Strengthens them up, makes them a definite contender just on paper. Next bit of news dropped last night after the Warriors Storm game, but Nelson Asafa-Solomona has extended his stay with the Storm until the end of 2027 as well. It's going to be a lot of players off contract in 2027, I'll tell you what. But that's a big win. I know everyone was saying that he was going to be a Wallaby because the Australians were after this Wellington-born Kiwi representative to play for the Wallabies. And there was some comments from him saying it was actually really close, him leaving, but he wanted to stay with Melbourne because who wants to play for the Wallabies, if we're honest. Great signing for them. Then we'll probably be talking a bit about Nelson later on, but he's quite integral to that Storm forward pack with all the players that have left to go be Dolphins.
Yeah, I don't really want to give his name too much airtime. I'm still dirty on him.
Right, so we'll move here. And the last signing I had was announced today. Josh Kerr has from the Dragons has signed with the Dolphins on a 2-year deal. Not too surprising. It was kind of in the air that Kerr was looking at leaving the Dragons. There were rumors he was looking at us as well. At the Warriors, but I think he's from roughly the Dolphins area, so it's kind of like he's going home, which is good for them. And he's a solid enough player, so I think he's a good addition to their team, especially when you think some of those forwards they signed aren't going to be around forever. But good signing for the Dolphins there, Richie.
Yeah, they need some depth, don't they? And that's a good pickup. They're starting to pick up a few more this year, with Herbie and guys like that. So look at what they're doing this year. I think they won't be any worse off next year. That's for sure.
No, and I think the way they've been performing this year is probably helping them get a few more of these across the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go on to NRLW signings. We've already talked about Sonny Bill's sister, but the big one, it's
Brad's
mean
girlfriend.
I've had to change my NRLW team again. Millie Boyle has signed a deal with the Roosters. I couldn't find the length, so I don't know if it's 1 year or more. There was no nothing specified that I could see, but I'm sure someone will mention it. But a big signing for the Roosters, the best female front rower in the game, joining your clubs, nothing to sniff at. So it means that until the Warriors have a women's team again, I'm a Roosters fan apparently, because in Millie I trust, and I follow her wherever she goes. So, what's your take on Millie going to the Roosters?
Yeah, that's massive. It's probably the best player in the NRLW, or definitely up there, definitely top 3, if not the best. So, yeah, I feel sorry for you having to support the Roosters, Brad. Wouldn't catch me doing that.
No, my allegiance to her will end once the Warriors women are back.
Well, I told you he's getting that haircut. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the last one I had was Jada Taylor has signed a 2-year deal with the Sharks. So interesting there. So some good squads starting to line up, and I'm sure we're going to see a few more big names get announced, so we can talk about them next week, hopefully.
Should be a nice tight
before you do
comp
it was a topic we didn't mention in the news, which is apparently around the England playing France this weekend in internationals, and then England are going to be playing Tonga at the end of the season as well.
Yeah, it's still confusing because I think England's basically confirmed that they're playing Tonga, but everyone's still talking about Tonga playing in a Four Nations at the end of the year down here. So I don't know what's happening. I'm going to go with that they're playing up in the Northern Hemisphere because we haven't heard anything from the Kangaroos or the Kiwis about the Four Nations. So it would be great for Tonga. It's good to see someone actually trying to get some international footy going, even if it's not us down here. So be great. And we'll go on to casualty ward now because there's a whole lot.
Yep.
I didn't even grab them all, Richie.
Rattle them off. Rattle them
so
off.
many. So Daniel Tupou's injured his hamstring and may not play this week. He hasn't been named, I don't believe.
That helps.
So that does help. And then Tato Moga from the Dragons had to leave the field with a shoulder injury and is in doubt for this week. Warriors saw Tohu Harris re-injure his knee. No word on how much game time he's going to miss, but he's not playing this week.
That doesn't help.
Chance Nickel-Klukster had a head knock, failed his HIA, and is facing, it looks like he's going to face the 11-day stand down, which means
2 games, right?
Yeah, misses not only this week's game, but the Magic Round game against the Panthers. Jazz Tavanga from the Warriors as well, injured his Achilles and will spend a few weeks on the sidelines. So a lot of them from the Warriors there. Tommy Turbo had a groin strain and could also miss some time. I think he has been named, but I would be resting him maybe. Corey Oates from the Broncos is going to miss 4 weeks, injuring his PCL. And then Regan Campbell-Gillard injured his groin, is going to miss a few weeks as well. So I know I just threw a whole lot of information at you, Richie, with injuries, but what's your take on there? There's some big names missing here.
I'll pick out a few, yeah. Corey Oates, feel really sorry for him, only just come back. Tommy Turbo, gee. You want to
just going to the
Tommy
team
Turbo
list.
Tommy
has been named.
He has been named, but he doesn't look good, does he? I mean, he looks good,
he's looked half cooked since he came back.
Fitness-wise, he doesn't look good. He looks on edge all the time, like he still needs to be in cotton wool, but that's just Tommy Turbo. He's sort of always been like that. The Warriors boys, obviously, that hurts a lot. Not just any players, too, big players. So,
yeah,
I'll get to really be tested.
Yeah, and Moga hasn't been named for the Dragons. Tupou hasn't been named for the Roosters. So, yeah, those guys are definitely out.
What did you think of Regan Campbell-Gillard? Did you think that was a hip drop that caused that or nah?
To be honest, I don't even want to do the thug life or anything. I honestly don't know anymore. there seems to be a million different ways to look at them, and I'm not smart enough.
Well,
Regan hasn't been named for the Eels either, but it didn't look good. But I just don't know. Some of them get done with a sin bin, and then some of them don't. But they might get a penalty. Then some of them get suspended, and some of them get a fine.
it's
just
inconsistency, eh?
Yeah, there's no line in the sand. It's not like when they got rid of the shoulder charge and things like that. It was like, if you do it, it's 10 in the bin. If they just said it's a straight sin binning for any hip drop, as much as we're going to complain about it on this show, at least you know where you stand.
Well,
it's just confusing. It didn't look good. I'll give that. But
if you ask Graham Annesley, though, he seems to think it's quite cut and dry.
Yeah, but
you still see lots of them that don't look intentional, though, right? They just look like an accident. And do you want to penalise accidents with sin bins? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And Mark Roberts has just said that Regan Campbell-Gillard's out for up to 10 weeks. See, so like 10, it's a bit the same as the tackle that hurt Tamari Martin. I thought that was a hip drop as much as one that we got penalised for earlier in the game. There was no penalty, no suspension, no nothing. So it's, what do you do? It's a penalty or a sin binning unless it's happening to the Warriors. I don't know.
And Richie, look, these guys are professionals. They train the whole time to do this. If these accidents are happening, do your training better. I'm sorry, but there are no accidents. You've got to say yes, it is, and it's not. Accidents, train better.
No, I take your point there, but there definitely are some that are somebody's sort of grabbed on the front, and the ball runner's just a powerful guy who's powered through, and the tacklers started in a good position but ended up around the back just by sheer force of the runner. And
that happened with Nakore. For the Warrior, he got a 2-week ban, and his was a tackle on Talakai, who was just too big, and when he hit him from the front and got spun to the side. But yeah, I don't know. We'll be arguing about it for years to come, I'm sure, with this hip drop stuff. But speaking of that, we may as well segue into Naughty Boys because they're all basically due to hip drops. So Payne Haas from the Broncos is going to miss 1 week for his grade 2 dangerous contact, which was a hip drop. And then also from the Broncos, Ezra Mann is also banned for a week for a hip drop. And Dylan Walker from the Warriors is facing a 2 to 3 week ban for an apparent head slam. No word as of yet if the Warriors are going to dispute the charge. They have named him in the halves, so that makes me feel like they're going to fight it. Because if they were just going to let him plead guilty, they wouldn't have named him, right?
I don't know that I'd fight it. I didn't think it was a lot in it, but I think the fact that when he comes over the top with his forearm across the face, it makes it seem like the judiciary wouldn't waste any time and they'd suspend him, even if I don't think it's a suspension. Yeah,
I don't think it's a suspension. I don't even think it was a penalty. I think it was a good tackle. But yeah, they're not going to win if they fight it. So
yeah.
It's saying I'm looking on the website. It's saying he'll miss 2 matches with a guilty plea, or 3 if he chooses to challenge and is unsuccessful. And he has until 4 p.m. Australian time Wednesday to enter a plea. So he hasn't entered a plea as of yet. So the time's come and gone. So I'm not really sure what's going on. And Mark Roberts said Dylan's fighting it. There's no way he should have been suspended for an accidental contact. And it's a bit the same. We may as well talk about it now. It didn't make the Naughty Boys, but Victor Radley got sin-bin for a head clash. They were saying there was shoulder in it. I couldn't see it. He actually made some comments, which he may get in trouble for later, saying it was a really bad call. I won't use the language he used, but said, it was a shocking call and should never have been a penalty, let alone a sin-bin. Mikey said Walker will get 3. Yeah, I think if he fights it, I think they're going to lose. I don't agree with the decision there, but I just don't see the judiciary helping us out.
I don't see it worth fighting because there's certain people, Warriors players, Victor Radley's, there's no point in fighting. They'll suspend you they'll just suspend you.
But yeah, so odds are we're going to miss it for 3 weeks, which is a massive loss with everyone else that's already out. I don't feel as confident going against the Roosters if it's Sean Johnson and Ronald Volkman, and definitely not against the Panthers at Magic Round. But yeah, time will tell. So we may as well go into round 8 because we're almost an hour and we haven't even talked about the games here, Richie.
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
So yeah, first game, Rabbitohs Panthers 20-18. You want to give us the rundown?
Yep, what a game. 4 tries to 3 for the Rabbitohs. Damien Cook, Latrell Mitchell with a double, and Isaiah Tass. 3 tries for the Panthers, all Stephen Crichton. All conversions and penalty goals, Stephen Crichton. So it was the Rabbitohs versus Stephen Crichton show.
Pretty much, yeah. And I've got second week in a row where the Bunnies have made single-digit errors, and they look composed and just piled on the pressure, which the Panthers couldn't contain in that final 10 minutes. Your take on the Bunnies?
Yeah, I thought they're impressive. Started really well, controlled a lot of the game. Even when the Panthers were able to fight their way back into it and take the lead, I thought they stayed calm and were able to find the special sauce to get 2 late tries to escape with the win. So loved it, mate. Anytime the Panthers loses, great game in my books.
And your take on the Panthers?
I think they're impressive as ever when it comes to their defense. They're just such a tough nut to crack. I mean, they weren't playing their best, but they still fought tooth and nail, and the Rabbitohs had to fight for every inch, and it felt like the Rabbitohs were playing their best footy. Yeah, they never say die, the Panthers, and even though they weren't looking likely, they still almost found a way.
Yeah, I've got here, I didn't think the Panthers were at their best. They made too many errors and were lacking that attacking spark we're used to seeing from them, with the exception of Crichton. Still one of the best teams in the comp, though, but nowhere near as touchable as they used to be. I think there is a few chinks in the armor. Still probably got them penciled in for a grand final. Even though, but, you know, it's not as tall a hill to climb facing them now. But your player that stood out?
I went Latrell. I think you probably did too. He just had the magic, mate. He was doing. He had one error actually, latest in the game, which hurt them. But other than that, he was just fantastic. Couple of tries, running hard, freakish offloads. He brought the full bag of tricks.
Yeah, he kind of carried his team on his back for a little bit at the end there. So, yeah, I picked him as well. Solid game from him. I think it's the second week in a row I've picked him. I think I'm just cheating now. But, yeah, next game. Broncos defeating the Eels 26-16, Richie.
Yes, yep. So it was 4 tries to 3 for the Broncos. Herbie Farnworth, Adam Reynolds, Ezra Mam, Tony Staggs. For the Eels, Clint Gutherson, Micah Sevo, Sean Russell.
Yeah, and I've got a strong first half, got Brisbane home here, but they struggled a bit with their attack in the second half. However, they defended well enough to stop the Eels' comeback, which was key in securing the win. Your thoughts on the Broncos?
I thought they were really impressive in the first half, and if they carry that form, for me, they're a strong contender for top 4 come the end of the year. They did let their foot off the gas a little in the second half, however, and that's when the Eels were able to climb back with a couple of tries.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Eels?
I thought they were quite poor in the first half. They just looked a bit off, and the Broncos were able to run up a 22-6 halftime lead, and ultimately left themselves with too big a hill to climb.
Yeah, I've got the Eels just looked clunky and weren't helped with a few injuries, and just too inconsistent when it matters, which is an ongoing theme in my reviews of their losses. So your player to stand out?
I really liked the Broncos halves this game, the control of Reynolds, the flair of Mam, but I'll say Reynolds, I mean, he got a try. I think he kicked a 40-20. His kicking game was killing the Eels. So I think he really set the tone for the lead, the big lead that the Eels weren't able to pull back.
Yeah. And going off my rabbit, I still got gone for the same player for the second week in a row with the Broncos too. I've gone with Payne Haas. He ended up with 212 running meters. Guy's just a machine. It's going to be hard for the Broncos without him this week.
Yeah,
he kind of is a linchpin there. So, big guy there. But next game on Saturday, we had the Sharks defeating the Bulldogs 33-20.
We did, and it was 5-3 for the Sharks. William Kennedy grabbing a hat-trick, Matty Moylan grabbing one, and Sione Katoa. 3 tries for the Doggies, Braden Burns, Declan Casey, and Corey Waddell. 5 from 5 off the tee for Hines, and a penalty goal and a field goal. So,
I've got on here. Sharks are starting to hit their groove. They've got nice attacking shape, and with Hines at the helm, they just ask plenty of questions, and they're a dangerous side. But your take on the Sharks?
Very similar, mate. Felt like they had too much potency for the Dogs, who are obviously still depleted. And the Sharks just always look like they have a team that have points in them. So, yeah, I think they'll be dangerous for the rest of the year.
Yeah, definitely. And your take on the Bulldogs?
Copy and paste from the last couple of weeks. Missing a lot of troops, putting up a fighting effort. Hopefully they'll come out of this period with, all their injuries. Hopefully they'll come out of this period having developed some depth and experience out of it and take that as a win.
Yeah, similar here. I've just got that they showed plenty of heart, but their depth's running thin. And against a top-tier side like Cronulla, it was too steep a hill to climb. But they are battlers, and I'll give them that. I know it's kind of like a backhanded compliment. But, yeah, as you said, this will give them a bit of a mental edge with their youngsters when push comes to shove later down the line.
Yeah.
Your player?
Will Kennedy. Got a hat-trick. He's just so sound and a big part of their attack. He always looks dangerous. Yeah, I went with Kennedy.
I went with Nico Hines. I got some of his stats here. He had 3 line break assists, 2 try assists, 13 points, and 100% at the tee. So
not bad.
Another great night out for him. Next game was the Cowboys defeating the Knights 18-16.
Yeah, it was a close one. 3 tries apiece for the Cowboys: Reece Robson, Kyle Felt, Tom Dearden. 3 tries for the Knights: Greg Maju, Dom Young, and Lachlan Fitzgibbon. The difference being 3 from 3 from Valentine Holmes, 2 from 3 from Lachlan Miller. So goal kicking was the difference.
Yeah, see, I should have gone with my gut. I think I said it last week that if Ponga plays, the Knights lose. But I went with the Knights, and that's what happened.
You did say that.
But yeah, Cowboys were lucky here. They didn't play well. They had some poor defensive reads. But off the back of some key plays from Drinkwater, they snuck home. Still plenty of work to do, but it's a step in the right direction and some much-needed points on the ladder for them. Your thoughts on the Cowboys?
I still think they look levels down from where they were last year. But I felt like this was almost a must-win for them already, So they got the result at home, which was badly needed, no matter which way it came. So they'll be happy with that.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Knights?
A dip in form, I think, after the gutsy efforts of the past couple of weeks. So, yeah, unfortunately for them, they couldn't pick up the win on the road. It would have been would have really put some momentum behind them, but not to be.
Yeah, I thought they did look better in patches here. But I think their biggest issue is they don't play as a cohesive unit. They're kind of a few players all playing on their own script. Until they get that sorted, they're going to struggle on the ladder. But, at the moment, they're just playing like individuals, which doesn't help you. Your player?
Scotty Drinkwater. He was on fire. I felt like he was a real difference maker out there.
Yeah, I had Drinkwater as well. Solid game from him, and he's just an attacking spark. So, next game, probably one of the better games of the round. Yeah, Dolphins defeating the Titans 28-26.
Yep, it was a fantastic game. It was 5 tries to 4. For the Dolphins, Robert Jennings grabbed 2. Should have been 3. Mark Nichols grabbed 1. Jared Wallace grabbed 1. And former Warrior Ewan Aitken. 4 tries to the Titans, all in the first half, unfortunately for them. Chris Randall, Isaac Liu, Tino Fasul Malawi, and Tanner Boyd. Unpack it, Brad. That was a crazy game.
Amazing comeback from the Dolphins. They looked second rate in the first half, but once they got a sniff in the second, they never looked back. Continue to impress me, especially when they're nabbing wins without their preferred halves pairing. And I think it tied for the biggest comeback. But yeah, to win after being 26-6 down, just fantastic. And it adds another chapter to this great story that is the Dolphins this year. But your take on the Dolphins?
Wasn't even 26-6. It was 26-0, wasn't it?
I've got my
26-6 at halftime.
Yeah,
but I think it was 26-0 at one point. Amazing. I thought they managed to pull off a miraculous come from behind win after looking dead and buried. It's just another performance telling me I need to stop doubting them.
Yeah, it was 26-0. Tanner Boyd got his try in the 26th minute, and the Dolphins got their first one in the 33rd.
Yeah.
But yeah, your take on the Titans?
Another very Titans performance. We know they've got points in them. They look dangerous with AJ Brimson back. They've got points in them. They just go through lapses where they forget how to defend. And we say it time and time again, and it costs them games, mate. So I don't know what the answer is because it's been a problem for them for a while. Yeah,
I've got the same. They still can't defend, and perhaps they thought they had the game won at halftime. No mental fortitude. As soon as the Dolphins got them on the back foot, they collapsed. Should never have let this game slip, and it's probably it's a dark day for Titans fans. I feel for them, but not for the Titans because it helps us.
Yeah.
Your player that stood out?
I put Robert Jennings. Got 2 tries. One of the most funny non-tries you'll ever see. Stumbling over and just laying there.
Poor Robert.
It was hilarious.
Thankfully, it didn't cost him his team.
It didn't.
Thankfully.
So more for that non-try than anything else that I put him.
Yeah, I went with Jared Wallace. He had 181 running meters up the middle and scored a try, and it was all against his former team. So thought it was a great outing for him. But next game, Manly defeating the poor old Tigers 22-16.
Yep. Poor Tigers. It was 3 tries all. So close for the Tigers. For Manly, Delicheri Evans, Olakawatu carrying on his good form, and Jason Saab. 3 tries for the Tigers, Charlie Staines, Api Coruscant, and Stafford Tor. A lot closer than some people picked. Brad, not you. I think you had a wee tip on them, didn't you?
Yeah, I put a little punt on the Tigers to get the win here and was on the edge of my seat. Thought I had the master stroke. But unfortunately, no. Manly, they just had a lucky escape. They defended poorly, made too many errors, but they made the most of their opportunities at the end of the game when it counted. Not a match they're going to be proud of, but they'll be happy with the 2 points. But your take on Manly?
Yeah, pretty much copy and paste what you said, mate. They managed victory, but didn't look overly convincing against the lowly Tigers. But, I suppose you got to give some credit to the Tigers for that as well.
Yeah, and speaking of the Tigers, what's your take on them?
A far better effort from them to take Manly to the limit, and this is a Manly team that's just tipped over the storm, so they're no slouches. It's just almost as if they've forgotten how to win.
Yeah, that kind of goes into what I've got. I've just got here, poor Tigers. I thought they had this match, but they switched off a little in that final 10 minutes, and a few individual errors saw the win slip from their grasp. Confidence is at an all-time low, so when the game's on the line, it's harder for them to dig deep. Disappointing, but your player of the game.
Yeah, I've taken someone in the losing team. I thought I'd shout out the debutant, Jareem Buller. I think it's pronounced.
I should know his name. I just brought him into my fantasy team.
Yeah, young. I mean, obviously, young guy debuting in a team like the Tigers. I thought, apart from one mistake, which wasn't great and led to a try to the Manly. Other than that, he looked good. He was a point of difference. So I thought I'd give him a shout on his debut.
Being completely facetious, he's a young fullback on the rise with the Tigers. Which NRL team's going to turn him into a superstar? Because that's kind of what happens to Tigers fullbacks. Which team's going to pick him up?
Probably Roosters.
My player to stand out was Ruben Garrick. I picked from the winning side just because he had 100% goal kicking, and that was kind of the difference here. So
yeah.
I see Nicholas has said Ruin Hammer aren't on tonight. Really? Are they not on? Honestly, just not. They have a game the night before and they can't handle it. Disappointing. But yeah, first game we had the doubleheader on Anzac Day. First game, Roosters defeating the Dragons 27-26.
Yeah, Brad would have been on the edge of his seat. It was 5 tries to 4 in favour of the Dragons, actually. So Tautau Monga, Jack Bird, Tautau Monga got 2, got 3. There you go. And Tyrell Sloan. 4 for the Roosters, James Tedesco, Victor Radley, Luke Keary, and Joey Manu. A close one, Brad. Bet you're upset. Bet you're upset with the result.
Not really. Dragons still lost. Roosters, they just looked a bit off pace. Not sure if it was due to them being poor or the Dragons stepping up. Defended well, went down to 12 men. They didn't concede any points while they were down to only 12 men. They just have the confidence in their ability to get out of a tight tussle with a win. Your take on the Roosters? Yeah,
I think they look a long way off my lofty preseason prediction for them.
Yeah,
they picked up the win, but another win, another Victor Radley sin bin, and only scraping home against the Dragons by 1 point and being scored 5 tries to 4 will be a concern for them. So
yeah,
hopefully they don't bounce back too hard this coming week.
Hopefully not. And Dragons, your thoughts on them?
It's just another close loss for the Dragons, and they're starting to mount. We've seen it in a few games already this year, so they seem to compete, but not quite good enough to get the result in the end, which, bet Brad's ecstatic about that.
I've actually got quite a complimentary note for the Dragons, shocking everybody. But yeah, the Dragons, they always step up for the Anzac Clash. Doesn't matter how good or bad they've been going. They always show up for this game, and they look close to getting the upset here. They'll be disappointed they didn't get any points in that 10-minute window when Radley was off.
Yep.
That was really their time to strike. They just didn't. They have a lot of talent, but talent alone is just not enough in the NRL. So, disappointing for the Dragons, I'm sure. Your player that stood out?
I've gone for another player in a losing team. Put Tyrell Sloan. I think he's been one that struggled for a position there over the past couple of years. Always looked like he's got a lot of pace and talent, and I thought he was instrumental in a lot of their scoring plays. So, I thought he went quite well.
Only Dragon I have in my fantasy team.
Is
Sloan. Mine was Joey Manu. I thought he looked dangerous in the halves. Getting him the ball more definitely makes them a bigger attacking threat. But thought he had a solid game there, and not looking forward to seeing him in the halves this week.
Yeah.
Then we get to the last game. Warriors losing to the Storm 30-22.
Yeah, this one hurt. It is 5 tries to 4 in the Storm's favour. For the Storm, Justin Olam, Cam Munster, Nick Meaney with 2, and Harry Grant. 4 tries to the Warriors, Jackson Ford, Dylan Watene-Zelezniak with 2, and Adam Fanua-Blake rounded out the try scorers. Yeah, go on, Brad.
Yeah,
it is painful to talk about.
The Storm survived an early Warriors onslaught, and they just started carving up in the middle when the Warriors started to fatigue with no bench in that second half. Not the usual Storm Anzac performance, thankfully for us, but they never gave up. Credit where credit's due. They made the most of their chances and got I'm not going to say a well-deserved win, but they got a good win here. Your take on the Storm?
Yeah, they fought back well and turned the tide, inspired by huge impact of Nelson Asafa-Solomona and cameos from all the usual suspects here, Munsters, Grants, Olams, all pitching in with tries. So, yeah, disappointing.
Yeah, and your take on the Warriors?
Brilliant start. We looked every bit a top 8 team to start off that match. Unfortunately, injuries took their toll, and we withered under the pressure with nobody left on the bench. I could dip into other things like officiating, but we won't do that here. Come across salty.
Yeah. I've got the Warriors stayed in the fight despite some poor calls in the Savage injury toll, so I'm going straight for the ref. The game changed when Tohu Harris went off, but they never gave up, which makes me proud. Fanua Blake was phenomenal. He played 71 minutes out there due to the injuries, and I wrote down how many meters he got in my review today, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. I think he got like 170, 180 meters. But yeah, it was the 3 weeks, the 3 games, Storm, Roosters, Panthers, was going to show us what if the Warriors were legit or not. Losing by 8 to the Storm when they lost by 60 last year, I think they're a top 8 team. It's too early to tell. They lost here, but if they can bring that type of fight with no bench, and with some dodgy calls, they can take it to anyone. They've just got to back it up. It's going to be hard this week, but they've got to back it up this week and again in Magic Round to stay, because we'll talk about the ladder pretty much next. They're slipping, which is just because of how tight it is. Jacko said we're top 8 but not top 4. 100%. I think anywhere from 5th to 8th is where they should be coming into the year. But Nicholas asks, is there a process where clubs can make an official complaint against overall refereeing performance? I think they can, but it never comes of anything. Even when it's really bad, you get a I'm sorry, which as Warriors fans we know all too well. It used to happen quite a bit. But your player.
I actually put Fanua Blake. You spoke about him. I was going to go Nas. I saw you were going to go Nas. So Fanua Blake, phenomenal. Late footwork, post-contact meters. He's been doing it a lot this year, and he's turned into a try scorer. So,
it's 3rd try of the year.
Yeah, very happy with that.
Yeah, my player was Nelson Asafa-Solomona, which I'm seeing comments about him already. The game changed when he entered. He was just basically almost every hit up had an offload. He was hard to contain. Has a lot of leeway when it comes to his defense, which helped the Storm. He was really able to get in there and have an extra go or two in a lot of his tackles without getting in trouble for it. So, massive game for him, unfortunately. But, don't feel as bad as I normally do after ANZAC Day this year, Richie. But that was the round at an hour. Wow. So you want to bring up the ladder, Paul? So I went with top 8 this last week. So you go with top 8 this week, Richie.
Yep. So number 1, Brisbane Broncos still. Number 2, Manly Sea Eagles. 3, Penrith Panthers. 4, South Sydney Rabbitohs. 5, Cronulla Sharks. 6, Melbourne Storm. Warriors have slipped to 7th, and Dolphins round out the 8. That's a traditional top 4 again now, isn't it?
It is, It's gone back to the normal top 4. Then 9th we've got the Roosters also sitting on 10, like from positions 3 to 9, all on 10 points. Titans are 10th, Raiders 11th, Knights 12th, Eels 13th, Dragons 14th, still coming down though, you see, Richie. Cowboys 15th, Bulldogs 16th, and Tigers still winless at the bottom at 17th. Not a great news, but that's why I said the next 2 rounds for the Warriors is integral, because if all those teams above them get another win, they're going to slowly move out of the 8 just because of how tight it is. So
one thing in our favour, we haven't had all our buys yet, so
we're
going to get some free points coming up.
We've got a buy coming up in like 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
It's after the Bulldogs game.
I mean, how good have Brisbane been? They're the only team with a gap. That's 3 points. Everything else is and the Tigers off the bottom.
Yeah,
I'm still holding out hope they're going to slide.
Yeah, they might though. You go through the Origin period and things like that.
They'll get hit hard at Origin. So
be some slides. So yeah, time will tell.
It's crazy close between 9th and 3rd, all on the same points. That's just nuts.
Yeah. They've had a very favourable draw to start.
Yeah, and they never leave their home. So if we want to bring up the tips before we move on. So Simon had another outstanding round. He only got one game wrong. He got the Panthers losing wrong. Every other game he knocked it out of the park.
He's on fire.
I have moved into second place. So Simon's first place, 42 out of 64. I got to second with a beautiful 6 out of 8.
Second equal. Say it how it is. Second equal.
Second with 36.64, and Richard has gone back to where he belongs at the bottom with a measly 36 out of 64. So dreadful from you, Richie. Another shocking week.
Hey,
saying Richie likes on bottom 8.
Yeah.
Oh wow. It's still family hour, isn't it? Oh, it's 9:06, I suppose.
9:06. So yeah, we'll go on to questions now.
And the multi of where all three of you picked the same picks, came close, but fell at the first hurdle, but was perfect after that, unfortunately. But there we go.
And see, my multi worked though, Paul, because I didn't put Penrith into mine, and I didn't put the Storm and Warriors game in either. So yeah, I changed it up. I wasn't confident on the Penrith Rabbitohs game.
So this is my this is the multi I put on every week. I've decided to put on every week, guys, for where all three guys pick the same game. Simon agrees it's definitely past the watershed now, so we're all good. So let's kick off with the questions. Would you like to see women's game copy Super League and add a New Zealand to the women? And look, I think you guys have said plenty of times you want the Warriors should have a women's team in WNRL. So
they're coming back. We just don't know when it is, but they have confirmed. I think it might be 2025 that the Warriors women team will be back in the comp. So, which gives them enough time to develop some players. We can't rely on them stealing all the former Warriors back.
I think when
no, you just have the Blackburn Sevens team as the essentially.
I think when Christopher asked that question, we were talking about the women's origin. So I think is he asking to put New Zealand in against Queensland and New South Wales as a tri series like we had in Super League days?
Oh, that's what he means.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. Then it could be good. Yeah, why not? I don't think they take State of Origin as seriously for the women as they do the men, so I think you would get away with that. Them allowing Kiwis in there. But yeah, I'm all for more internationals.
Now. If you leave it 2 or 3 years, it'll be set and that's it. It will never happen. So
yeah. I'm always down.
So Nicholas asks, do you guys think that the Tigers will win a match this season?
Yeah.
Other than the bye.
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah.
They got to play the Dragons.
Yeah. Well, they got very close this week. It's only a matter of time before they stumble across a win.
They got very close this week to a team that's second on the ladder. It's going to happen. They might only get one, but they will get a win. I'm just trying to look why you're.
Hopefully, that's not against the Warriors.
Yeah. So they have got. Hold on. They got the Panthers this week, so that way. But Magic Round, they're playing the Dragons, so they'll get a win in Magic Round against the Dragons.
So he said. So if we look at the games, and you say Panthers this week, no. Dragons a Magic Round potentially. Then they got the Rabbitohs, no. Then they've got the Cowboys, then the Raiders, Titans. We know the Titans can't defend, so as long as they put the defense up, they've got a chance.
Yeah.
The Storm, Cowboys, Sharks, Knights, Dragons again. They've got Dragons, two opportunities against the Dragons.
2 wins.
The
There you
season
go.
goes forever.
Book it in.
Yeah, looking at how long the season goes for, of course they've got to get a win. Everyone else is going to run out of, is just going to be knackered by the time they get to the end of the season.
Yeah.
But actually, they're running Rabbitohs, Raiders, Warriors, Dolphins, Roosters, Eagles. There's not many opportunities, really. There's 2 or 3. There's not a lot of games they're going to win.
It is hard when you're the worst team in the comp to kind of pick out games that you're going to
Yeah,
get.
true. But Knights, Titans, 2 against Dragons. That's about it. Those 4 are possible.
I think Dragons and Titans are their best bet. The Raiders haven't been that great, but I think the Raiders should still be good enough. But Titans are probably, taking my bias out with the Dragons, Titans are probably their best target.
And Cowboys, look, I mean, they've got the Cowboys twice. The Cowboys have only on 6 points. So, but yeah, Cowboys should do better than that. Okay, then the meaty question you wanted to talk about: potential rugby league players from Tier 2 rugby league nations like the United States or Canada or Jamaica would be a good idea for salary cap exemption. That might help grow the sport.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts there on that one?
That's why I wanted you to take it. That's 100% the reason this exemption should exist. It's to get the Tier 2, those other players. Like we talked a lot when we were doing the World Cup, like Jamaica and things like that, how well they are doing. I would rather see them use a salary exemption, like if they had almost like an advanced development deal, where you went and gone, like there's a young prop from Jamaica that looks like he's got some talent. If we could get him in, he could do good things like that, where you're grabbing those young Tier 2 nations that don't get to play in competitions like this. If you had one of them and you brought them into the fold, similar to what the Dolphins were doing with the Papua New Guinean players that they brought into their camp in the preseason. But I think that's probably a better use for it. Like Volandis just wants to, measure his member by saying we've got the best wallaby coming to our sport. That's what he wants it for, but that's not going to help the game. Doing what Simon's mentioned there, targeting these young guys that you're not trying to steal from another sport. You're trying to help grow your own sport in one of those countries. The only problem, I guess, there is knowing what Australia is like. They'll grab that young guy that plays for Malta or something and turn him into a kangaroo.
Well, that's going to be my question for you. Is Jamaica in New South Wales or...
But like Simon said, you can get players from those nations and you might be interested. It's the same. You look at the NFL when Valentine Holmes and Jared Hayne went to the NFL, more people started watching from Australia. They didn't do that well, but people had their eyeballs on. If you've got a guy from Jamaica goes and ends up at, we'll say the Roosters because that's where everyone goes there, people from Jamaica might be interested in looking at this NRL thing. That kid down the street that played, or did track and field with their son is playing. I don't know. Yeah, and then, like Mikey said, then a local misses out. But
they do a lot of sort of crossover things, and quite often rowing is one that's. But if you look at the American Olympic team and go, okay, we'll take a couple of big rowers. Because they've got engines and they know how to be athletes, and a couple of track and field guys and a couple of maybe the sevens guys, and bring them over and get an Olympian, hopefully a gold Olympian from the USA. That's how you grow your audience in the USA. It's not by taking a game over there that they don't know about. Anyway, there we go.
And I saw Mikey mention saying then a local misses out, but with the planned model, a local's going to miss out anyway because they're trying to target superstars from a different code. So that local growing player isn't going to play because they're getting some guy in. So it's still
But then again, one of the things we've been saying is that we want a team in Wellington. We think there should be a team in the Pacific Islands. They need a team in West Australia or somewhere like that. We're talking about expanding it with another 2 or 3 teams. That makes space for the locals and for these extra people, because we talked about the fact that would be stretching the player base perhaps too thin. So if you did it in conjunction with that, then maybe that's the way forward.
Yeah. And any other questions from anyone else?
We kind of talked about this before, but Chris Rosberg, where do you rate RTS on the scale of Benji to Sonny Bill Williams? Closer to Sonny Bill Williams, but not, but definitely not anywhere, but not really near.
Smack bang in the middle.
Yeah.
Benji.
Well, no, I mean Benji. To be fair, Benji didn't even make it as a regular Super Rugby player. Whereas, look, Sonny, but to be fair to RTS, he's a regular I'd say smack bang would be a regular Super Rugby player. He's that, and he's also made it into the All Blacks camp. Played a couple of games, not embarrassed himself, so slightly above middle, I would say.
Oh yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah. And Sonny Bill is up there with Brad Thorne in terms of best New Zealand converts.
There was talk mentioned something about Brad Thorne choosing to play for the Queensland in State of Origin rather than the Kiwis when it was in Super League.
He even played for Australia when he went back. In that time, which we won't talk about.
And I like Simon's point here that Tigers could end up doing it. Cleveland Browns lose every game and then have a parade down Ballymain to celebrate.
Yeah.
Would they
don't end up like that?
Would they get wooden spoons thrown onto their training pitch like the Broncos did? That's my question.
Nah, their fans are used to it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the questions from the live chat.
All right. So I did get sent a question earlier on from Andrew, the editor of Nothing But League. It's a bit of a long one, so I'm going to abbreviate it down because I know we're pushing for time as always. But
pushing for
time. As Warriors fans, do you like playing Melbourne on Anzac Day night? I can imagine the 9 p.m. kickoff your time isn't convenient. Or would you prefer to play an Anzac Day Eve game instead when the later kickoff isn't a big factor, or play the Anzac game at home, maybe every second year? And who would you prefer to play?
Play the game. Sunlight, 2 p.m. kickoff in Australia.
Yeah, I'll go first, Richie, because I'm just on a roll talking at the moment. The 9 o'clock, I don't mind, except for the fact that you usually have to work the next day. I took today off. As I told Paul before we went on, I'm very happy I did because I had to finish writing up our notes for the show. As you know, Richie, I had to write my game review that I had to put out. The team list for this week's game got announced at like 1 o'clock, so I had to make my pitches that I posted for that. Very, woe was me, first world problems. But it's a lot of stuff that you got to do after having a late game. And I don't know if you guys are like it, but after a game like that, I'm usually can't go straight to sleep. So, it's a late night. So that it would be nice if it was an earlier game, but it does look good in Melbourne at night, which is the thing. I would like them to do it every second year here. I don't mind playing Melbourne. I feel like it's a good thing. I know Andrew's a Raiders fan. I know he was saying New Zealand versus Canberra because Canberra is the capital of Australia. I get that as well, but I feel like we've done the Storm enough now where it's become a tradition. So I would be happy to stick with it there, but I want them to alternate it. I know they make a lot of coin in Melbourne having it there, which is why they like it there. And it looks great on TV, but it's Anzac for a reason. It's Australia and New Zealand, so it makes sense to switch it. And I think...
Yeah, and have it down in Wellington, Richie?
Anywhere but Eden Park. But yeah, I think Mount Smart actually would be too small for that game. And that sounds silly saying that, looking at some of the crowds we get in New Zealand. But I honestly believe that, that could be actually it could be too big a crowd for Mount Smart. The demand for tickets would be too high.
I think
Melbourne only gets 30,000 in their stadium. It's a small stadium too.
I don't even think it's 30. Oh, okay. I think it's similar to Mount Smart, isn't it? Maybe a tiny bit more.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure if you got it all depends, Paul. If the Warriors are playing well, it'll sell out. Even though it's Anzac Day, if the Warriors are doing rubbish, people aren't going to go, regardless of the spectacle, which is, I think, another reason why Melbourne get it all the time, because they are always successful. And the people in Melbourne, they don't go to a lot of Storm games, but they go to that one. Like I think they said that was like their first sellout before kickoff, didn't they, Richie?
Sellout before game day, yeah.
Before game day, it's like their first one, if not ever, in a long time.
Yeah, Jackie, we're not going to talk about the COVID and what NRL promised during COVID.
Yeah, no,
it just hurts too much.
A lot of broken promises. But yeah, your take on it, Richie?
I mean, yeah, it's fine for me. 9 o'clock, fine. I like watching it. It's a great spectacle on TV. I'm a biased Warriors fan, but I'd love for us to get a home advantage once in a while. Alternate it maybe. Then maybe we get the first Anzac Day slot, if that were the case, and then the Roosters Dragons game gets pushed to the last game, so they get the night game. It's still roughly a 7 o'clock kickoff here in NZ, and it's still a night game, and we can put on a show as well. But yeah, I just think of the players as well. The 9 o'clock kickoff, they're used to New Zealand time. That's 11 p.m. for them, really. There's a lot of advantages that the Storm enjoy in that fixture.
Yeah, and Simon hasn't put his fixture yet. So Simon, sort out your life, mate, and give me your picks.
Before we do move on, look, Brad made a point there about about the amount of stuff we do to get these shows up and running, to get his website and other things up and doing. We do it all for the love of it because we do enjoy it. As you said, woe be me. But it is a chunk of work making this happen all the time. So if you'd like to become a supporter, head over to New Zealand, head over to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio, and that'll help pay for things like the software we use for live streaming. And maybe, just maybe, I can buy these guys proper microphones and things like that to improve our sound quality. So if you can, or if you'd like to, please head over to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio to support us in what we do here. And obviously, and if we get enough, we'll pass some money Brad's way as well.
Yeah, I need a new camera. I'm still using my $12 camera, Paul. It's not good.
Did you still have that T-shirt shop open, Paul?
From last week?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I've lost it. I need to find it. The link again.
Yeah, check it out. I'm going to grab me one. I want to wear it for the show.
And then before we move on, we've still got our questions. So you want to ask me your question while I'm quickly writing down Simon's picks?
Sure. With Dylan Walker facing suspension this week, what changes would you make to the named side this week if Walker's ruled out, which I think he probably will be?
Yeah, it's going to be...
You're about to look at these squads, that's when you discuss it, surely. Joe, you're asking a question for...
No,
Brad's done the same.
Stretching out the show.
Brad's done the same thing to
me. Yeah, so Ronald Volkman is in the 6. I think I saw a comment earlier from Jacko. It might have been Jacko. If it wasn't, I apologize. Volkman is in the 6. He isn't meant to be the 6. Metcalf is meant to be the next man up at 6. Metcalf's still injured. We don't have anyone else. You could have gone with Chance, move him into the halves just to help out, but Chance is gone. So I think it's still going to be Volkman, but I think they might have to switch it. I think you might have to make Volkman more the traditional 7 and move Sean into 6. I still don't think that's going to really work well. I don't know, but I don't see Volkman working as 6. So yeah, and like Jacko said, Webster said he made a mistake playing Volkman at 6. At the moment, though, Richie, who else do we have? There's no one else.
I know, but do you tempt fate moving Sean? I mean, Sean's been the on the ball guy this whole year, and it's look at the form he's produced.
Yeah, I don't know, because even looking at the extended bench, Paul's brought up the team list. You've got Sifakula, who is a second rower, Volkman, who is a halfback, Ali, who's a centre, Kalani going, who I didn't know, but he's actually a second rower, and Zion, who's a front rower. So it's not like they've got, I think his name's Farr, who's been playing Ben in Farr. The halves.
Yeah.
Ben Farr, who's been playing in the halves with Volkman. He's not up. I don't think they can't use him anyway because he's like a development deal, and you can't use development players till after round 10. So it's only Volkman. That's the only option, unless you decide that you want to try to turn Bailey Sirinen into a half.
Oh, please no.
Which they've done before. He's done it before, but I think I still would feel more comfortable with Volkman there. And yeah, Jay said Volkman's killing it in New South Wales Cup. He's just not a 6. But yeah, I think that you might just see a slight change where Volkman will come in and they'll kind of let Sean be more of a 6 type. But I don't know.
I mean, Brad, surely you just put a forward in there and just a front rower in
We're
there.
saying, Finn or Blake.
Yeah,
Finn or Blake.
Throw in another front rower. The more front rowers you have, the better.
Yeah. So then, who would you pick, Richie?
I think by necessity, it has to be Falkman.
Yeah.
Purely because there's nobody
corner.
else. There's nobody else. Yeah, exactly.
Mine for you is a bit more open. But if Tohu's out for an extended time, we know he's not playing this week. If he's out for extended time with this knee injury, who would you bring in as the lock? Because Jazz is out too.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think it's pretty cut and dry, this one. Tohu's going to be out, well, potentially. We don't know how long. But Jazz is going to be out for a few weeks as well. So I think had Jazz not been out, I would say Jazz. He's not going to be there. So I think the next person you're looking at is probably Curran. You could go with Serenin, but I think this is Curran's time to shine.
I'm the same. I said that I'd put in Curran. Curran doesn't have that ball playing and short passing game that Tohu has, which is going to be a massive loss because we saw what happened to the Storm when Tohu was out there doing that. But he's the next best option that they've got. So, Curran for me. But, we may as well move on to going on about the round starting with the Warriors Roosters. If you want to give us the Jagger said when's Barnett likely back? I'm hoping for Magic round.
Yeah, because he would be another option at 13, really, wouldn't he? He'd go well there. Yeah.
But I'm hoping. We haven't got any word yet, but I'd say they kind of said he was like 3 to 4 weeks away a couple of weeks ago. So maybe Magic round, if not the week after. But you want to give us the Warriors lineup that will most likely be changed by the time the game happens on Sunday.
Yep, for sure. So Tantua Piki at fullback, Dallin Martinez-Lesniak and Ed Cossey are retained on the wings, Marcelo Montoya, Adam Pompey in the centres. At the moment, the halves are Sean Johnson and Dylan Walker. We expect that to change. Front rowers, Adam Fanor-Blake, Bunty R4 and Wade Egan's back, which is great news. Very welcome news. The back row, Jackson Ford, Marata Niokore, Josh Curran. Interchange, Freddie Lussick, Bailey Serenin, Tom Ale, Viliami Valère.
Yeah, kind of the team I expected to be named after the injuries last night. But the Roosters, they got James Tedesco at fullback. They got Corey Allen and Jackson Polo on the wings. Joseph Suoli'i and Paul Momorowski in the centres. We've got Joey Manu and Luke Keary in the halves. Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Brandon Smith, Lindsay Collins up front. The Butcher brothers, Egan and Nat in the second row. And Mr. Simbin himself, Victor Radley at lock. Interchange, we've got Drew Hutchinson, Angus Crichton, Satili Tupanua, and Matt Lodge coming back for his first game against the Warriors at Mount Smart. So, what's your take on the game? I've actually backed the Warriors here. You know, we're down on troops. Roosters probably have a better team on paper, but the Warriors are undefeated at home. And I don't know. I just feel that it doesn't matter who's on the field, to be honest. They just seem to get into the mud and have a ball. So optimism fully launched. I'm going Warriors.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Optimism and bias.
Yeah. This was out of the 3 games. This was the 3 horror games in a row. This was the game I picked that they would win. So I've got to stick with it. So, yeah. And Paul, if you want to come in and be pseudo Simon, who did Simon pick?
I was all ready with my "I feel so dirty" and all these kind of memes and ready to go, and you guys have both gone and chosen the
Warriors.
And wow, I don't even have to use them. Oh dear. Obviously, we're looking at the Warriors having some roast chicken this weekend.
Yeah, so all 3 of us picking the Warriors. So hopefully that's an omen.
We'll go because all 3 picks has been doing my multi so good so far.
So we may as well go through the rest of the round.
The TAB does not agree. TAB's got the Warriors at $2.70 and the Roosters at $1.44.
Good value. Good value.
Yeah, easy money. So we'll go to the rest of the round. So first up on Thursday, We have the Sharks Cowboys. Cowboys still don't look flash. I've gone with Sharks.
Yep, Sharks.
Yep, Cowboys not very good when he gets into the water, and as it's at home, it's at sea. With the Sharks, are eating some Cowboys.
Friday night we got the Eels and Knights. I've gone for the Eels.
Eels.
Eels again. Yep, $1.42. The Eels are obviously going to be too slippery for the Knights.
Yep. Next up we've got Broncos Rabbitohs. I've gone with the Rabbits. Broncos have been playing well, but no Payne Haas, no Ezra Mam. I think the Rabbitohs will get them here.
Mm-hmm. Rabbitohs, no Payne Haas, no Ezra Mam. Massive losses.
I'm sorry, boys, but look, I'm thrashing you in the table. I'm way ahead, and look, the Broncos, they're top of the table. I talked about this earlier. They're clear at the top of the table. They can afford to lose again and still stay there. I'm Broncos.
Yeah, this is where we catch up to you, Simon.
But
the Broncos are not favourites. The Rabbitohs are. Broncos $2.
Yeah. Next up, we got Raiders Dolphins. I've gone with Raiders. I was tempted with the Dolphins, but Raiders at home. Got to pick the Raiders.
I was hoping you'd go the other way. Yeah, I said I've got to stop doubting the Dolphins, but it was close last time these two teams played. I think the Raiders get some revenge at home.
Yeah, we knew Simon was always going to pick the Raiders. This is why I don't give you my picks prior, so you can't pick against me.
Yeah.
Also, the Raiders are favourites, $1.61.
Yeah, it's always hard playing in Canberra. Next up, Seagulls, Titans, Seagulls. I know they look patchy against the Tigers, but the Titans just can't defend.
Yeah, Manly.
Yep, Eagles to swoop through the porous Titans defence.
And then probably the easiest game to pick of the round, Panthers, Tigers. I'm going with Panthers. We just said Tigers are going to get a win, but it ain't going to be here.
Yeah, Panthers. No explanation needed.
Well, there is, because they tripped up my multi last week. But yeah, we're still going Panthers anyway. And in the Battle of the Cats, the Black Cat's going to win.
Yeah. And then we've already covered the Warriors, Roosters, all of us picking Warriors. Last up, we've got Dragons, Bulldogs.
Go on, tip against them.
I've gone Dragons.
Oh, how could you?
First time for the year, I've picked the Dragon. The Bulldogs, their depth is truly tested. So if the Dragons can't beat the Bulldogs at home, they deserve to be ridiculed like I do to them every week.
Oh, do the Bulldogs have any good ins this week?
Not really.
Not that you're going to tell me.
No. I'm going to the website now. I'll have a look. Hold on.
No, I'll back myself. I'll go Dogs. I'll go against you.
That's probably the right pick, because what have you gone with, Simon?
Absolutely. This is why are you going with the favourites Dragons? I've got no idea who. $1.60. It's definitely Bulldogs, $2.28. Maybe the TB's going that way, but look, they've got it wrong. Is what I say. So there we go.
The only big change I can see is that Kyle Flanagan's been dropped and Josh Reynolds is in the halves. That's the only big change. But yeah,
I think it'll be a tight game.
It'll be tight, yeah. And I'm going to be really annoyed if the Dragons lose this the one time I picked them to win. But then, so looking at it, the games that are all the same, we've all picked the Sharks over the Cowboys. We've all picked the Eels over the Knights. We've all picked the Raiders over the Dolphins. We've all picked Manly over the Titans. We've all picked the Panthers over the Tigers. We've all picked the Warriors over the Roosters. So that's the multi there, is it?
So that's the multi there, nice. $2 on, return of 25.59, which I do not expect to receive because yes,
we never get it right.
The multi so far have been a disaster. But there you go. There's the actually no, to be fair, we only got one wrong last weekend.
Yeah.
Which was
I think we only got one the week before as well, didn't we?
Yep. Oh, no, that was 2 weeks before. You're telling me that we're on track to win this one. But look, obviously, if looking at the odds, the Warriors is the big worry at $2.70. But the Raiders versus Dolphins again, $1.61. That's not a foregone conclusion either. That should be another good game.
There's no such thing as a foregone conclusion in the NRL, Paul.
Apart from the Panthers versus the Tigers.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, should be a good round. So before we go, we'll quickly go through the Super League. And you want to bring the real Brad back. I've letting my bias affect my tips has meant that Simon is beating me. And yeah, so there's no Super League this week, but I'll just run down the results that happened over the week. Wigan are now top of the table, Richie.
How good?
Yeah, goodbye, Jacko. Cheers for joining. But yeah, Jacko's very happy that there's no Super League. But yeah, Wigan are top of the table because Warrington lost again. So Warrington are now second place, Hull KR are third, and Catalans are fourth. So St. Helens actually defeated Warrington. And St. Helens, I think, are sixth still on the ladder because of their poor start. But yeah, St. Helens defeated Warrington 28-6. Hull KR defeated Castleford 12-7. Lee defeated Leeds 20-6. Salford defeated Catalan 16-14. Hull FC defeated Uddersfield 20-14. And then Wakefield still haven't got a win. The poor old Tigers of the Northern Hemisphere, they lost to Wigan 22-6. And then, yeah, as Paul said, not Paul, Simon, I get you two mixed up now that you're playing Simon in our picks, Paul. No, round 11 is not until not for, I think, another week, just because they've got the international thing for England. But yeah, great to see Wigan at top of the table, Richie.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic.
And,
that's two Warriors top of the table. We've got Wigan Warriors and New South Wales
Cup. New South Wales Cup Warriors are top of the table. Anything else you want to add, Richie or Paul, before we go?
Thanks for the chat, everyone. So great fun as always. Thank you, Paul/Simon. Subscribe to the Patreon and buy a t-shirt.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in tonight and joining us on the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. For your weekly update on Rugby League, tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, either on Facebook or YouTube, or at your convenience on iHeartRadio or Spotify. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers again for joining me, Richie, and cheers for all your help in the background, Paul, and good night, everyone.